The Way of Kings. Why is it taking you so long to start reading this, Jacob?
You told me you were going to ask me this question. So if you don't know, what you don't know, I'm a first-time reader of this book. I think there's two things that I haven't started. One, or why I haven't started this series. Like I've read a couple epic fantasies now. But I guess Game of Thrones, that's about it, actually, if I think about it. Well, and Wheel of Time. I read
Wheel of Time.
a big chunk of Wheel of Time, so I haven't finished it yet. I think there's two things. One, I didn't really know about Brandon Sanderson until recently, actually. And then two, when I read Game of Thrones, loved it. And then you find out it's not finished. And then that broke my heart. And then I read Name of the Wind, and that's not finished. And now I'm like, do I really want to start another series that's not finished? That I know, if I fall in love, I'm just going to have to wait and wait and wait. And I don't think so. But you've spoken highly of it. We want to do a podcast, and we thought a first-time reader podcast would be pretty cool. I don't know. You've read it before.
So for those out there, I have read the series before. I think I read them all during 2023, but because Sanderson announced the new book coming out at the end of this year, it's a good time to go through them again. And also, Jacob and I love discussing books and what we're thinking about them. So this is just a way to kind of record that and also open up some discussion with maybe one other person at some point. And so I'm also a fan of epic fantasy. And I mean, the Stormlight Archive books were kind of the definitive series to read nowadays, I would say. I believe the second book is actually the highest rated book on Goodreads of all time. So very, very well regarded books. But I wanted to follow that up because you're a first time reader. We're kind of going to tailor the podcast towards you, asking you questions, letting you speculate. So I won't be throwing in any spoilers or anything. And I wanted to ask kind of a bit on your expectations, speculation. What kind of tropes do you think are going to be present in the series going forward? Because you've only read, I think, the first two chapters.
Yes. Oh, yeah. By the way, for this episode, we've read the prologue and the prelude, and then that's it, which I'm pretty sure will be in the episode description, but just in case. And then second thing, before I answer your question, should we direct them to the YouTube so they could be like, hey, write in if you want anything? If anybody's out there listening, I think we're going to have this up on YouTube. Highly encourage.
I'll throw in the link.
The communication. Oh, also on Spotify, too. You can put questions in Spotify now. Anyways, tropes. So I'll go with what I think there will be and then what I want there to be. So what I think there will be, given that I read the prelude already. Prelude or prelude? Anyways, I think there's going to be the whole rebirth chosen one type vibe going on. While reading the prelude, I feel like there's big hints at being rebirthed, with them having to go to basically hell and then coming back. So I think that trope, that fantasy trope, is going to be in there. I do want some sort of romantic trope. So that's my number one trope that I would pick on the other one, right? Or hey, that's one of them. As far as one that I would like to see, I love when books have romance, strong romantic B plots, because I just think it adds. There's no, I think there's fighting for life and death in things, situations, and then there's love below that. Those are the two most things that hit me the most when I'm reading for stuff or watching or enjoying anything. And I don't know, it just helps me connect to characters more. I like rooting for relationships, as weird as that sounds, but I hope that there's that in there. Love triangle, I mean, that's cool, but I like the more ones that are bittersweet, hey, we like each other, but we can't really be together because we're gonna be in war, and it's just tough time. Do we do this or not, or other things? So I'm a sucker for those, and I hope that's in here in some regard.
Is there anything you hope isn't in here?
No, but I will say from reading already, I don't think I've experienced as much world building as much as I have in this book. Like I can see how much world building is going to be in this book, and not that I dislike it or anything, but it's never been something that I'm like, oh, I need all this. Like, yeah, I do like it because I think I like fantasy, so I have to like it in some regard because that's like a big tentpole, I think, of fantasy books. Um, but it is kind of where, like, I started noticing, like, man, there's a lot going on here. It's almost like at the same level of Dune, where it kind of just throws you in there, and it's like, oh yeah, here are all these proper nouns, you know. Um, and then
Because
like,
you're more of a character first reader, no?
yeah, definitely, I definitely prefer. I think what gets me is characters. Like, give me characters to root for. Um, you know, whether they're super complex, like in Game of Thrones, and like they're weird or not. Like, I just give me a character to root for that I like vibe with, and you know, I'm hooked. Whereas I'm not super into the world building stuff. So like, if I were to judge it, it'd be like characters, plot, and story, and then under that, fantasy
Mm-hmm.
stuff. But yeah, no, just the world building has caught me as
Yeah.
a you know, it's a
Well,
lot.
if you're a video game player, I would say I think this story reminds me a lot of kind of like a Final Fantasy type story.
Hmm.
If I had to give a some sort of a comparison,
Yeah.
and that's a good thing or a bad thing, I guess, depending on if you like those games. And I really like world building. I think this book handles it for me personally a bit better than Wheel of Time. I think at times Wheel of Time was too descriptive for the sake of being descriptive,
Hmm.
whereas in here I think the descriptions for the most part are not too heavy, but they're contributing to kind of what's going on. And yeah, it does really throw you in there. If any of our viewers have seen it or read it, I think Red Rising also does that, where they kind of just throw you in. There's a bunch of terms and world building that you kind of have to figure out what it means.
Hmm.
And I enjoy that. I don't mind that. I have talked to some other people that have kind of voiced that they don't prefer that. They kind of like to know what these terms mean, but I guess it's just preference.
I think it definitely. I think it can get frustrating at times. Like, I think when I first read Dune for the first time, and I'm like, I think I was caught up on like, I need to know what these mean. So I was going back to, they have like an index or a glossary in Dune. So I was going back to that and reading it up, and I was like, this is so much work to read this book. But I think in reading Dune, like what I tell people when I recommend that one, I'm like, there's going to be terms you don't know. Don't worry about it. Like, just like, you'll get it eventually, and if it's really important, they'll make sure you get it. You know. So I think that's how I'm
Yeah.
treating this one, where I'm like, that's another capital noun there. But I'm just like,
And
well,
you are right. This is a big series.
yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
there's 4 books, I believe, out right now. The 5th one's coming out at the end of the year. And man, does a lot happen.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a lot to talk about. So to kind of jump into that,
Wait, can I ask you a question? Sorry.
Oh yeah, go for it.
I would say I want your spoiler-free, make it as succinct as you want, review of Way of Kings, first book.
Okay. Way of Kings is a great introduction to the world and to the characters. I think it has a lot of heart. By the end of the book, I feel like I'm rooting for people already. I'm kind of already placing them into how I feel about them. It has some twists and turns, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great introduction, world building, character building book, and it just gets better. I mean, the second book is awesome, and yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool. Thanks
Cool.
for sharing your
So
thoughts.
jumping into it to kind of bounce off of Wheel of Time, because we've been mentioning that, I think the Prelude is kind of a homage to that. I think it has a lot of parallels to it, but you want to give like a short recap of what happens in that chapter?
Yes, definitely. So, Prelude, you open up on this character. Dude, I'm debating because Spotify has audiobooks now, like listening to the chapters so I can learn these pronunciations, because there's no chance, man. There's no chance. But anyways, Talak, you open up on him. Obviously, some huge battle has
It's
happened.
actually Kalik.
Are you serious?
No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, okay. I was
I
like,
think I don't
honestly, it
remember
would be
either.
if you knew, I would appreciate
I
you
have the
telling me.
audiobook, so I could go back and listen.
But yeah, so Calac, I'm gonna say Calac because that's what it looks like. Uh, he's walking around this like battlefield of a battle that I'm guessing just happened. Um, and you're right, it does feel very like sci-fi Final Fantasy type vibes. Where there's like different types of bloods all over the place. He's looking at these giant rock things called thunderclasts. And like talking about how they like rip themselves from the earth, which is a very cool visual, to join the fight. Um, he starts talking to himself and he's like, man, at least I didn't die this time, which I'll give you some thoughts on that later. And yeah, he's just walking around and he's looking for people that he's supposed to meet up with. And he finds this guy, Jezerin, I think his name is. Yeah, Jezerin. And he's like, oh shoot, is that the only dude that lived from my other homies? And no, actually, 9 out of 10 of his homies who decide on a place to meet beforehand lived. But only Jezerin's there, and he sees all the other, I guess, 7 swords in the ground. Or I guess 8, because I think Jezerin already put his. And then you start learning about this thing called the Oath Pact.
The Oath Pact.
Yeah, oatmeal. Quakers. They're Quakers, actually. Yeah, so you start learning about this thing called the Oath Pact, which is these 10 people made some type of deal that they have to fight in these desolations, and whether they die or live, they go back to this place that sounds a lot like hell to be tortured until the next desolation happens, is what it sounds like. But basically,
you're right.
Yeah, and Calac is like, dude, I can't go back. Like, I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. Like, I don't want to go back. So he tells Jezerin, he's like, dude, don't make me go back. This, like, I can't do it anymore. And Jezrin's like, dude, we took a vote, man. 9 of us lived. That's a good number. Now we're going to walk away from this. So leave your sword in the sand and walk away. And he's like, Calac is like, first of all, he's like, damn, dude, like, I thought this guy was like strong, but you can tell this is taking its toll on Jezerin too. But then he's like, well, what about the guy we left behind, which I think his name is Talonel?
Yeah, Talonel.
Yeah. And he's like, what about him, which is the only one who died who got sent back? And he's like, is that going to like uphold our bargain, I guess, that we made, our contract that we made? And Jezerin's like, yeah, I think so. And Calac's like, okay. He like summons the sword out of mist, which is interesting, and then like slams it down on the ground, and they walk away. And that's how the prelude ends.
Yeah, you covered it very well.
Thank you. I tried.
You clearly read it.
I read it twice, actually.
There was one description in that chapter that I love. It's just stayed in my head, is when they're describing the battlefield and he mentions all the different colors of blood mixing together. Mm-hmm. Just that use of color really stood out to me for some reason.
Yeah. What colors did you imagine? Because I immediately thought of purple.
Orange, purple, red.
Yeah.
But something to add on to what you said is that these 10 people who are meeting, they're referred to as heralds.
Right. Yeah. And I think I picked that up in the next chapter.
Yeah.
They dropped that. Yeah, there's something. So here, I have notes. Okay, I have notes. How do you want to do this? Do you want to like ask me what here?
Just go for it. You're doing good.
Okay. So first of all, I'll tell you how I felt reading this, as in like, did I like this chapter or not? I don't think I'll do this for everyone, except unless I have strong feelings. But I had strong feelings about this prelude. And I'm not saying this because we're first episode in and I hope that someone listens to this, but I think this hit me in the exact way that when Brandon Sanderson was writing it, he intended it to hit someone. Like, everything he did worked for me. And to the point where I think I can tell I'm really enjoying a book when that movie in my head is just like a movie where like, dude, this is the shot I'm seeing. This is like how everything happens. But like, yeah, so I loved it. Right. And I think I loved it because of, it was an ending to a story that I wish I knew. because this ending is like bittersweet, and the fact of knowing like these guys have gone through some stuff together, it seems like, and then they made the vote to leave this dude behind in what sounds like an awful situation, and they're just gonna walk away from him, is like, dang, dude, that sucks, man. Like, how is that guy gonna feel? Like, is it gonna cause him to, obviously these people seem like powerful people, like, is it gonna cause him to, like, I don't know, they sound like they're good people, you know? Like, is it gonna change his mind about things, you know, to get revenge on them? Because I would be freaking pissed. And then two, how will this affect them? Because as we see in the next chapter, like, we're like thousands of years in the future, and I'm guessing these people are at least some sort of immortal or whatever. And that, like, I want to see, like, I hope we get back to these characters in some aspect, and like, I want to see the consequences of this choice, like, in their lives, because I think a lot of them are going to have like guilt from doing this, and they ran away from, I guess, their duty that they swore to, it sounds like, and they walked
Yeah.
away. So I
Well,
want
it does kind of make them a bit gray because, yeah, so this oath pact, they're supposed to uphold it. They abandon their one dude to go and pretty much suffer for all of them.
and what I
they
assume
just
is
hope,
their friend.
Yeah, it seems like these 10 people probably all knew each other well. So they abandon the oath, and they're just hoping it's going to uphold. And then from there, they also say that they're going to lie to the people,
Yeah, dude,
and tell them that they won against the enemy. Doesn't say what that is. It just says that they won against the enemy. And then they pretty much all say, we're never going to talk again. We're going our separate ways. Like, we're done.
yes.
This is it.
Dude, like, that whole part when he tells them, he's like, well, what are we going to say? And he's like, tell them we won. And I was just like, damn, dude. Damn, that is like, it's so Dark Knight.
It's kind of Endgame.
Oh, I was thinking Dark Knight, where it's like, yo, like, what are we going to do? Harvey Dent, like, got corrupted and stuff. And Batman's like, we don't tell him. Like, he died a hero. And it's just like, jeez, man. Like, that's got to, like, it's got to weigh on people eventually, right? But yeah, like, I loved this Prelude. I read it twice. And I will say, just to nerd out, not nerd out, but like gush over it. Like, TV show, movie, whatever happens, like, you could totally do this whole scene, right? Start here, and then like last shot before the title card comes up, it's like the shot of the 9 swords, like in the desert, just like that, and like it pans up to show the battlefield, and then boom, like a Way of Kings or whatever pops up. Like, that's what it was playing in my head when I was watching this stuff. But yeah. I mean, I loved it.
I think so you mentioned, that it seems like these heralds are able to summon from the mist these blades. And I believe they're called honor blades.
Whoa. I don't know the name of them yet. You gotta be careful, man.
Is that word not in there?
No.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's in this chapter summary I'm looking at. So okay, well, honor blades.
Yeah.
So they have these blades, they can summon them from the mist. Like you said, seems like these heralds are some type of powerful person. And besides the whole stone and the blades in the stone, whatever happened here also seemed to have went down. It's described as a torn landscape littered with dead humans, thunderclaps, and other beasts. So whatever they were fighting against was pretty something.
Yeah, and definitely sounds like they had different types of, I guess, like, magic people. Like, I think they say like surge binders and dust bringers, which to me, that makes me surge binder, I think of someone who can like control electricity, and then like a dust bringer, like maybe like fire people. And I don't know if that's how it works, but like that's my original assumption. I do know, just from like what I've seen on YouTube and stuff, like, that Sanderson is a big magic guy, so I am aware of that. I know there's going to be lots of magic and stuff like that. And I did read like the first couple of chapters of Mistborn, so I have experience in some of his writing, but that's about it. But yeah, they're definitely huge battlefield. I go back to, like, if they're making a show, I think this is such a unfortunate thing that they'd have to open on, because that's like, either it's gonna look bad or it's half your budget, man. Like, I don't know if there's any plans to make this a series or something like that, or if he's waiting to finish.
I think there have been some adaptation discussion. I haven't followed it very much, but from what I know about Sanderson, I believe he's younger, so I think he has a bit more experience and has seen what people have done well and what people have done bad in adaptations. So I don't imagine him just letting it happen.
Yeah, I think if you're listening to this, Brandon, go animation. Just go animation, because what I've read in your first 2 chapters with the live action is already bad. I can tell. There's no way, no way that someone could make that's hard. It's basically anime.
Something I'll throw in is that I don't believe we touched on. So when they're there and they're discussing, I believe it is Jezerin and
Yeah.
Kalak, when they're talking, they say, so long as there is one of us still bound to the Oath Pact, it may be enough. There's a chance we might end the cycle of desolations. And then Jezrien points out that mankind also has the Radiant.
Yeah. So 2 things there. They talk about the cycle of desolations. And the first thing I wrote down actually was like, is there a time loop of some sort happening?
The wheel weaves as the wheel wills.
Exactly. But I'm like, I don't know, because now we're 4,500 years in the future in the next chapter. So I don't know how much that fits. Or do like desolations just happen like down the line of time, and it's not really like a circle thing. It's just more of like at certain points we have certain like almost like extinction events like that happened on Earth or something. Yeah, so that drew attention to me definitely, and I was like, I don't know, maybe. But I feel like I'm dropping that little theory going on. I will say though, again, to bring up the rebirth stuff, like, or let me. I can't ask you questions. I can't ask you that.
So I'll ask a question about that. So you think it's going to be not just a chosen one trope, but a rebirth
Yes.
of the chosen? So exactly like Wheel of Time,
Yes.
like the dragon is reborn.
Like my first prediction is that I guess the one that goes back, right, which I guess is Talon, will be our main protagonist in some fashion, like whether it's his spirit or like his likeness. Like I think he will come back. I think this is a big book to where there's not just one protagonist, but I mean like who I'm assuming is the chosen one, because I believe this trope is going to be in there. Yes, okay. About the Radiant Knights Radiant, I think is what they call them.
The Radiants.
Yeah, that's interesting. I feel like we hear about them a little bit, but not too much for me to have an opinion. And obviously, they're not a part of these heralds. It sounds like they're 2 different groups, but maybe same side. It sounds like. Yeah, we do learn a little about them in the next chapter, but I'll save that for when we talk about that one. But yeah, no, that's
okay. Well, I think we covered this one pretty thoroughly, and yeah, jumping from.
Oh wait, sorry. I have one more thing for this one. I am curious so there's 2 things I'm curious about. Where do they go back to? Like, is it some sort of plane of existence? Is it like a Wheel of Time thing, which semi-spoilers for Wheel of Time, like that, basically the dream place that souls go to while they're waiting to be reincarnated? Like where are they going back to? Or is it just like location? Like, hey, like, I don't know, you go here and you serve your time and then we like let you go. Another thing, this oath pact is binding someone or like keeping someone away, which is also a very Wheel of Time thing with the dark or the magic stuff where they lock that guy up. Yeah, so I thought about that too. And then last little thought, if I can remember real quick. Nope, I lost it. Oh, Kalak at one point says, "They see us as divinities. They rely upon us, Jezrien. We're all that they have. Who relies on them is my question. You know what I mean? Like, like are they are they talking about like mankind? Are they talking about like who relies on them? And if they're locked up in this hell for so long, like when do they become a part of the story of desolations? I guess the cycle of desolations.
This is bringing me a lot of flashbacks
Yeah.
to like other stuff that happens.
But yeah.
No, it's exciting.
Did
It's
you
cool.
have any strong feelings when you first read this one?
It's been a while, but going through it again, just I think it's an awesome opening. It gives you a lot to think about, but not a lot of answers.
Mm-hmm.
And even I don't even think I could answer some of these questions that it brings up very thoroughly myself. Probably because maybe I didn't pay attention enough when I read it the first time. But no, yeah, a lot of think about. This is one of those chapters, just like the opening of Wheel of Time, where I feel you can come back to it.
Mm-hmm.
As you start to get answers, you can start to kind of piece together a little bit more about what might have been going on here.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, to segue though into the prologue, because the prelude and the prologue are kind of disconnected. I mean, you're 4,500 years apart.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like a taste of something that might have impact later. And then now we're jumping to a whole other story.
Yeah, definitely.
So you want to break it down? You did a really good job of doing that last time.
Yeah, so in the prologue, we open up on a party. And this party, from what I gathered, right, these are my opinions or my inklings. Obviously, this treaty was signed. They don't really explain what the treaty is, but from what I can guess, right, they're celebrating this party. It's the Alethi and the Parshendi, which I'm guessing they don't really explain, but Alethi, I'm guessing, is like the empire, like the top dogs around town. Parshendi, they say, are like, there's people called the Parsh who are like really stupid, I guess, like not like animal, like I don't know, like they sound like cavemen. You get me? And then there's the Parshendi who are
the Parsh are the same as the Parshendi. I think it's just a short name for it.
No.
They're
Sorry,
not,
sir.
or they're a faction of the Parshendi.
So it's like Parshendi is Parsh man who can think, and then there's Parsh. It's just like they use them. It sounds like in some regard, like they're lesser people. I don't know. Like not saying I think that everybody's created equally, but like that's what the vibe felt like. Like, oh, those are like ugh. But then they're like, oh, these people aren't like that. And so some treaty was signed. They don't really explain.
Okay. I won't say anything, but if I had to group that into a faction, yeah, it's the Parshendi, but like you're mentioning, there's a bit more social aspects to that. But simply put, yeah, Alethi Parshendi.
Yeah. So, and again, like, I don't know if Alethi is like ethnicity or like, hey, you're a part of some group, like, I don't know. But anyways, so Alethi Parshendi celebrating this treaty. It's a big party. In the middle of our party, we got some guy in white robes named Seth Sansan Villano. We'll get into the name later. Awful name. The Truthless of Shinovar. And he's there. And he's not there for the party. He's actually there to kill the king, King Gavilar. And that's pretty much just what this chapter is he's in the party. He drops some like sayings about like, oh, like this is how it's going down. You get some cultural things about the Parshendi. Like you find out, I guess they're like black marbled with red. And then you learn a little bit about the Alethi, nothing crazy. And he's just going through this party. And then eventually he gets to, to kill this king. But the little caveat is that he was sent from the Parshendi to kill this king. And he's like, they're going to break the treaty like the moment it's signed. Like we're celebrating the signing of the treaty and then we're going to go break it. And on top of that, they were like, yeah, make sure you're seen doing it. So he does that, goes down, has this fight with all the guards, kills the king in a battle. And then I guess I'll finish off with, so kills the king and the king tells him like, I think it's tell my brothers to find the most important words a man can say. I don't know if I'm quoting that exactly right. And Seth is like, damn, dude, like that's kind of important, a dying wish. So what he does is he writes it out in the king's blood on like a piece of wood. to when people find him. Which I think we bumped into his brother at one point in the beginning of the little thing, but that's about it.
Dalinar.
Yeah, definitely. Dalinar.
Yeah.
Dalinar colon, pretty sure.
Hold on. Yeah.
But yeah.
So one thing I wanted to add real quick is this kind of goes into some of the world building that I think is really cool. So you mentioned that Seth is wearing white, and that was under the orders of the Parshendi based on tradition so that they could see him coming. And I thought that was really cool because usually when you think assassin, you think black, ninja, nobody's seen. But in this, it's like, nah, if you're assassinating somebody, you're wearing white and they're going to know you're coming. Yeah. I just think that's a really cool distinction.
It's like more hitman than assassin, you know, like, hey, like the cartel's going to do you dirty, man. Like you're not going to be subtle about it. But
yeah. And also you mentioned the name, which kind of goes into this with Zeth, is there's a lot going on with his name.
Yeah.
So what do you think those parts mean? Like one of the things is that he's truthless. He's a Shin, so that's another kind of cultural thing. He's a Shin.
Those damn Shins, god dang it. No, yeah, I mean, awful name. Like I put, my God, could a name get worse? I just don't. It just takes me out of it. We can talk about that, but like, I don't like why. Because I think you corrected me when I was telling you about this. You're like, his name, it's pronounced Seth, and it's like, so why the S and the Z? Like, please, like, just make it easy on me and put an S. Seth Sun Bolano. But to answer
Truthless of Shinova.
Yeah, dude, it's just like, come on, man. Like, first of all, there's a lot. There's actually,
they don't bother me.
We'll get into it about like what I think of this chapter. But anyways, so I don't know what truthless means. I have some guesses that it has to do like, it sounds like he's owned, honestly, because he says masters, and then he like, so I don't know what that is. Like if he was like sold in bondage or something like that. But that's what I think truthless means in some regard. Like, hey, you serve some master, and he says it's the Parshendi, but he's also like trained in like fighting. And then Shinovar, I looked on the map. Shinovar is a location on the map, and it's like far east of the map. No, far west of the map. So I'm wondering, like, is this a more mystical place in the world where they like know these magics and like familiar with shard blades? Because obviously this stuff was like, he was accustomed to it. They had no idea what he was doing with his like magic that he was doing.
Because they mentioned he's a surge binder.
Oh, they do? Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah. So, and then also, oh shit, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, let's talk about that. So like something I think, I don't know as far as his name goes, he is a very religious individual, like a zealot, basically.
Zeth?
Yeah, like highly. Whatever he is about is religious in nature. It kind of reminds me of like monk-ish. But yeah, like super religious overtones with this guy, just like up front. Like he talks about the stone a lot, which caught my attention. Like it's blasphemy to walk on stone, or in like to cut the stone that he did during the fight. So I don't know if truthless is some sort of religion too, and he's like bound to serve whatever his god's rule is. But he's also very knowledgeable about the world, like and theology, I guess, in general, because he brings up the heralds later too, and he's like, "Yo, like I saw 9 of the 10 heralds, but they were missing some girl. I think it's a girl name. Yeah, Shalash. Maybe it's a girl. I don't know. guess what that name sounds like."
So this guy knows. He knows what's up.
Yeah,
like he knows stuff.
He knows about like the what's it called? Shard fire. Stormlight lamps. Okay. And he's like, man, they're using this stuff for like mundane purposes, and he calls it like profane and stuff. And so he's very in touch with this magic stuff. And like I said, it gives very strong religious vibes. Like, did he grow up in a temple?
He has a code.
Yes, he does have a code, but then he says he doesn't. because then he's like, well, I'm truthless though, so
What if he had a code that he breaks now? Because it sounds like you're saying he kind of knows how things should be treated, but he's not treating them in that way.
well, he has his opinion of things, but he goes about it like again, like he always goes back to, well, I'm truthless. So like I don't really know what that means. Like now I'm
He's a
thinking,
professional.
I guess so. Like I think now his religion and the truthless thing are separate, because I think, yeah, that's what I think. I don't know how he
Mhm.
became a truthless or what that is entails, but
Okay.
he's definitely, like I said, I think he's like a zealot where he is willing to do what a god says he should do, and whether that's killing people or performing
Yeah.
assassinations, basically.
So, because Zeth he's a surge binder, but when he goes to confront the king, and the king flees and all that thing happens, um, does it mention anything? Because I don't want to throw anything out there that you haven't read about the person that he's confronting.
No, it just says he's a king, King Gavilar colon. Um, yeah, that's about it. He does have shard plate and is
Okay.
familiar with fighting against shard blades and with the shard blade, which again, like shard blade, magic sword, it's not the same as the blade they had in the Prelude, because they like when Calax sees those blades planted in the ground, he's like, these are stronger than shard blades actually. Um, so yeah, so
Okay.
shard
So they
blade.
mentioned that there's shard blades.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Okay.
definitely. So this guy, King Gavilar's definitely seen war in some aspect. His tight crew had seen shard blades before because they weren't like scared of them, but nobody was really familiar with the magic. It seems like, and I don't know if King Gavilar was, because he didn't say much before he died. Um, but yeah, so that's about what they
Mhm.
say about King Gavilar. Has a brother. Um,
Okay. Well, fast forwarding a little bit through the whole fight scene that happens, is later on we find out that Gavilar's confused because he's like, "What the hell? We just
yeah,
signed this treaty. What's up with
I
this?"
I wrote that he thinks the first people he asked is like, oh, the Theta car, yeah. Like he thinks they're the ones that went to go kill him,
Mhm.
and he's kind of like, what, like, and he says like a couple more names, and it's like, nah,
And
bro.
then Zeth just tells him, he's like,
Yeah,
"No, it was a Parshendi, man."
yeah. I mean, he's dying anyways. What's he gonna do?
Yeah.
And it sounds like they wanted
And
to be known that it was them. I don't know.
okay. And then kind of the two main things that I think are kind of points of discussion are he gives Zeth a strange black sphere
Mm-hmm.
and tells him, "You must take this. They must not get it."
Yeah,
That's a big thing. And then the other one, like you mentioned, was to leave a note for his brother Dalinar that you must find the most important words a man can say.
yeah.
So,
So Black Sphere, I played Baldur's Gate 3, so I already know what that is.
uh-huh. Yeah, on
Mm-hmm.
the black sphere, I won't comment on that, but I'm curious on what you think is kind of the well. It's almost hard to even speculate what that is at this point. It's just a black sphere, but
Well, they did say the only thing that I could tie it to, that I would have any guess that's rooted in context. Seth did say that, like, hey, the Alethi were really close to making shard blades, like manufacturing shard blades. So I don't
the
know.
Alethi.
Yeah, that the Alethi
Okay,
were close to that. Um, so maybe that Black Sphere has some sort of knowledge to it.
or an
Um,
ore or something.
yeah, that like allows that to happen, in some regard. Or then the other guess would be like, okay, it's obviously like a magical item that, I don't know, maybe a part of a weapon or a map to something. Think of like Treasure Planet. But those are the only two guesses that I could have at this point. There's not much.
Well,
Um,
what you mentioned does add some weight to the shard blades because you mentioned that they were close to making them, so that it
mhm.
makes them sound scarce,
Yeah,
like
it reminds me.
valuable.
It reminds me of, maybe not as crazy as the, what are they called in Game of Thrones? Like
Oh,
super.
dragon glass,
No, not Dragon Glass. It's the other ones, like Net's Dark Sword and stuff like that. Because Dragon Glass is
vibranium.
obsidian. No. Anyways, like those swords where it's like hey, there's like 10 left. You know, it doesn't sound as rare as that, but it does give that vibe of like, yeah, nobody knows how to make these anymore. Or if maybe they weren't even made, they were like, I don't know, natural forces, I guess you could say. Um,
Yeah.
so, so yeah, it definitely sounds. I'm like Seth said, he's like, dude, if they figure that out, like everybody will be speaking Alethi because they'll be nobody will be able to stop them. Which is interesting because like that means then, and as we've seen, the magic is a lost art. It sounds like, because I think if magic was
The
like,
surge binding.
yeah, like if Seth he knows it, so I think he has a good grasp of like where it's at in the world. So if he thought there was enough people to like combat the because he fought the shard blade with magic, so obviously it's viable. So that tells me like, hey, magic isn't really a thing anymore. In this current state of the world. So
Okay.
at least in this
And
part
then
of the
the
world.
last main thing was the whole find the most important words a man can say.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think there's any significance to that, or it's just
A red
something that
herring.
his brother needs to hear? Or
No, I think there's definitely significance. It's in here for a reason. Yeah, I think I think the brother is not gonna know what it is. You know,
telling her?
yeah, I don't think he's gonna know. I don't think it's gonna be like an immediate, like, oh shoot, he's talking about this. I think it's gonna be something that maybe we read about in some aspect of him searching for these words. Um, I joked around and I said I thought that the words were "I love you," but I have a feeling it's gonna be something like that. You know, like, hey man, I'm dying. Like, maybe it's not about the major story. Maybe it's about like, I don't know. I have a feeling that his brother is like a drunk and like not, you know, the man he should be with his status. You know, like he has a responsibility. So I feel like
Yeah.
maybe that's what he's calling his brother out. Like, hey man, be better. Like, yeah, I don't know. That's what I think. It's going to end up being, not more tied to the overall plot.
Okay.
Probably super wrong, but I do have some. I have a lot more notes. I don't know if you have anything else for this one.
No, there's a lot I would like to talk about, but I can't really bring that up yet. These two chapters, and that's kind of the reason why we want to start with them. They're kind of their own little two mini stories that you get to understand the overarching story.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't really throw out too much just yet.
Yeah, definitely. We also hear about.
And,
Go for it. Sorry.
I was just to say, also with these, it's a little bit difficult to discuss like characters too much, motives too much, because
Yeah.
it kind of disconnected a bit.
So I will. So I'll go to my notes because I took a lot of notes on this chapter. Okay, so something I want to talk about. Again, like I said, Seth is a very spiritual man, and he talks about Vorin worship. And he's talking about that when he brings up the heralds. And now I'm like, okay, again, very like there's a lot of religious vibes coming from these first two chapters. I think like damnation. It sounds like, what's it called, Marcos? Book of Revelations. You know, like with the desolation type stuff, like the world's ending type vibe. And then like all of Seth's like I said, he's a fanatic. It sounds like, and he knows a lot about, like, he literally mentions like theology. So like Vorin worship has to do with the 10 heralds. Yeah, like I guess they're gods to these people. You know, or like the divinities. Like, I don't think they're actually gods. I think when Kalak said like, hey, we're like divinities to these people, that's an admission of like, we're really not. You know, like maybe the contract that they signed is giving them some power in some regard, and like that's all it is really, like more cursed than being an all-powerful being. And it says Vorin worship, which makes me think two things. Either it's the higher level god, like maybe there's people in charge of the heralds, which I don't really think so, because they called Jezrin the king of the heralds. But anyways, like maybe that's the person who bestowed them their powers, or like that's what people associate them to serving, like kind of like angels for like God, you know, like these are his angels that he sends out to go do his bidding. But yeah, Vorin worship brought up, very interesting. So like again, what I think and what I would love to see, because I'm so attached to that prelude already, is I want people to go seek these people out, you know? And like, hey, obviously they're put up on a pedestal, like they're worshipped, there's statues of them. There's that one statue missing, which like maybe King Avalar knew something that we don't, you know? It sounds like he was a little ahead of the curve on things. But like, I want people to go search them out because they've realized, hey, desolation's coming, you know, we got to go find these people who are supposed to stop it, or help us.
There's so much I want to say, but I can't talk about anything.
Yeah, so like, hey, like this desolation's coming, we need to go find these heralds again. And yeah, like they roll up on them, and like people find out like, oh man, they're just dudes, man, they're done, they're tired, like they don't want to do it anymore, they wanted a life. Like one of them's farming, one of them's like a drunk, you know what I mean? Like they're all in like different spots. Like that's, I wrote it down, like I kind of want to talk about it at the end, but we're already talking about it. Like if you were to ask me what I want out of this series, I want to see that. I want to see that in some aspect. I'm not going to say I would be disappointed if we don't get it, but I think there's so much there from like, all right, going deep here. Like there's so much there from an emotional standpoint that I would love to see in such a genre that I think can get so focused on scope and plot, you know, like, hey, it's this really big story and it's like all about the story, where, hey, these little like human feelings in such a big story, I think are like reasons why I love Game of Thrones. Is, yeah, you have this cool stuff going on, but it's really about like, man, this guy just misses his family, you know, like he just wants to get back to his family, or like whatever, you know. So I think these things could be really humanize them.
This book, I think, has very human parts.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned it to you. There's one part in this book, just like the prelude.
This one specifically?
That I can just visualize so clearly in my head. Like, give me a camera, I could direct this scene right now because of how well done it is. And the emotion and the weight behind what's happening just makes me, I want to be there. I would be part of this. So there's some very, very human parts. I can think of two in particular that are real standouts. But yeah, I do think there is a lot of those human moments. He writes characters great. I love the way he writes his characters. So I think you'll get some of that.
Yeah. So that's what I'm looking forward to. I would love to give you my thoughts on the chapter as a whole, though.
Oh yeah, go for it. Of course.
As I loved the previous chapter, and like not exaggerating at all, like I loved that prelude. This one was a lot more like, you know, like it was a means of moving on in the story to me. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to talk about every time like in-depth thoughts of a chapter, but there are some things now where like, okay, I think I understand Sanderson's writing a little bit more. And we kind of talked about this before, but like something I didn't love, and I'm not going to say hate, but I didn't love it, is the way he writes his fighting scenes. And they're very meticulous, and you hear the thought by thought process of how this guy does it. And he's explaining magic at a point, you know, which I don't know if you want to talk about that, because I know you do like those things, but where it really slows down the pace of what I enjoy reading fights. And I get it, because this guy is obviously trained. So like in his character, he is probably thinking all these things, and we are in his POV. So like, I'm not saying it's like poor choice or anything. It's just, it doesn't work for me as the way, like when you read a fight and it's like a couple sentences and you see someone got killed and you're like, oh shoot, like what just happened? You know? Cause I feel like that makes me feel more in the moment of, that's how it would go down. Like it's probably lasting 10 seconds, you know? It's not going to be like,
I can't remember entirely, but off the top of my head, I think he writes the fight scenes differently based on who's fighting.
Yeah, which I would expect, you know, like, yeah, like this guy is definitely trained, you know, like trained hitman assassin, to where time probably does slow down for him, like in that regard. You know, like if you were to like take someone who plays baseball, put them in the batter's box, like record their thought process if you could, versus someone who isn't, you know, like who's never played baseball before, and you throw them in the batter's box. Like it's so much, I'm pretty sure you would see a similar thing that you see in this book here. It's just personally, for my enjoyment of it, don't necessarily love how much it slows down everything. Because then it's like, I know he's going to kill these guards. You know, like these guards are going to get killed. And like to me personally, I think magic's cool, but also I don't need to know the inner workings all the time. You know, like set up the rules, I guess. And this might just be that, you know, I don't know. And like you might not go as in depth the next times, but like, you know, give me the basic rules and like just have fun with it. You know, it's magic. I don't need to know the ins and outs all the time. You know, sometimes I think it's done good. Like I think Name of the Wind does it really cool where it's like he's learning about it in school, you know, and like that's how you're learning it because he's learning it versus like, hey, I'm going to do this here to do this and then do that and then this. Like it's like almost like reading an equation at times. And I'm just kind of like, I don't love it. I don't hate it, but it's not my favorite type of fight scene. Do you have any thoughts on the magic system?
Yes, but we'll talk about it another time. Okay. I don't want to throw out too much. I'd rather you learn it as you read.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, he talks about, so we can get into that. I know, like, I mean, I enjoy talking about these things. That's why we have the podcast. He calls them lashings, which reminds me of weaves in Wheel of Time, very much so, where it's like, hey, in Wheel of Time, again, semi-spoilers, I haven't finished it, I haven't read it in a minute, so like I might be wrong with my description, but you can have this weave going and then this weave going, but also it's like more draining, like it costs mana, you know, basically type thing to have multiple things going on. The more you have, like you have to be more skilled, and lashings seems that way. And when I think of lashings, I think of like cuts, right? So like, is this some sort of cutting? Like, you know, what's the meaning behind that? Like, why lashings? Like, I'm curious why it's that name, or like even like, you know, whips. Like, hey man, you get lashed with a whip. Like why that name? You know, I want to know why that name.
Yeah, that's a good way to understand it, though,
dude. Like throwing random stuff out here. I think we should write down my predictions. I'll start writing them down eventually, or try to remember when we finish this and write them down. Lashings, right? So when Kalak was talking about damnation, whatever, they don't give a name to it, hell, he talks about like hooks being inserted to his flesh like time and time and time again. And now I'm like, look, man, maybe every time someone used lashings, that's what would happen to him. You know what I mean? Like maybe that's why it's called a lashing. Because
that's a cool connection.
Yeah. So like again, shot in the dark, just very similar connotations of like it's a strong negative connotation to that word. Like there, obviously, I know he picked it for a reason, and they did bring up in the prelude that like, hey, over and over again, hooks peeling the skin and driving into the bone, or maybe they're just there to get tortured. But why? Like, why are they getting tortured? It's very like again, very religious connotations of like. Sorry, Marcus, if this, I don't know, but whatever. But like,
you're good.
It's like they're like, the heralds are paying, like, what is it? What did they say about Jesus, Marcus, about sins and stuff like that? Like,
paid for our sins.
Yeah, like they're paying for their like humanity's sins in a way or something, you know, like going to this hell and getting, I don't know, huge religious like I don't know, tones that I pick up in this book that I really haven't seen in anything else, I don't think. Like, yeah, I think Game of Thrones touches it on a little bit, and especially like later on in the series, but this is like heavy. I'm getting like, you know, I guess Christianity, like relations to this, and just religion in general. I think it's going to be a big part of the story.
In the first 2 chapters, since we're going through it so detailed, you can already really tell on the world building, like we're getting religious things, we're getting different fighting styles, different cultures from like different parts of the world. So yeah, he does a lot in these first 2 chapters, I think, for building the overarching world.
Yeah,
and I think that's why he included them. They obviously are important for him to have them there, and it's not something you see in a book very often to have like a prelude and
double dip there.
So he felt he needed to put these there for sure.
Definitely. And I think that's the way I'm not going to say I'm like a expert or anything like that, but I feel like I watch a lot of entertainment, like media, TV, and then I think I read a decent amount too. Or like I've gotten to the point where, hey, they show you something or they tell you something, it's important, you know? So like obviously
Hmm.
these things are here. So I'm really like I would like to, if anybody's listening, I don't dive this deep into everything I read, but because we're doing the podcast, I'm really hitting home, you know, like trying to really dig at this. Um, but yeah, no, I think like going back to what you said, I would like to say the prelude is like the big outer circle story, you know, and the prologue is probably what kicks off our whoever we're following, like what kicks off a lot of their stories, you know. Um,
Yeah.
so that's the way I would see it. Like, hey, outer circle is going to be maybe more for the series, whereas prologue is going to be a lot more for this book specifically. Uh, so
Yeah. Well,
that's
not to open up a whole other thing, but another thing that you didn't mention was Stormfather.
Stormfather. Ooh,
That's another kind of religious name that's dropped. The
yeah. I
Stormfather.
didn't even write that down because you were
So
right. Well, you weren't right about the honor sword, honor blades being in there, but they did mention heralds in chapter one. So yeah, maybe your little chapter summary. Yeah. Yeah. Stormfather. I mean, that's definitely got to be
something.
some. Yeah. No, I think like I don't know because like okay, going back to the map, I looked at the map. There is. It's weird though because they don't call it this. Um, it's like north south, and then they say stormward and like storm away. Let me see.
They storm for so many things.
Yeah, stormward and leeward. So like you say stormfather, right? But like what I see on the map, then like because it's on the map, I think more of geological meaning, and maybe yeah, like obviously like people might like people used to pray to the sun because they thought it was a god type vibe, you know. Again, religion. So like maybe someone worships this really like natural occurring phenomena as a god. Um,
Hmm.
so that's what I would think Stormfather is at this moment in time. But that's something like
Okay.
okay, like as we're talking about this, I'm enjoying the religious aspect of the world building more than other stuff right now because I think like he threw out, I'm guessing, are races like or like cultures like the Parshendi. Are
And the
they?
Aleti.
Yeah, like Parshendi don't sound like normal humans because they're marbled with red, you know. So I'm like, are they like?
I
Is
think
this?
of Darth Maul in my head.
Yeah, that's a kind of a scary thought. Like that's oof.
Yeah.
They're little scary
It's
people.
a hard look.
Yeah. But and then like we did talk about like different colored blood. So like, are they all humans? I don't really know. You know, obviously they treat the Parsh like less than humans. It sounds like
Yeah.
um, like they almost call them animal. I think at one point, but I don't know. Um, yeah, but I am really enjoying the religious because I don't think I've really read something that has, at least in my opinion right now, dove in. Like I can tell it's going to dive into it more. Like I think religion is going to be, and like people's beliefs and deities is going to be talked about in this
Hmm.
book as more of a story point than I think in Game of Thrones. I know Game of Thrones brings it
Okay.
up, but I feel like this one hit it home a lot earlier.
Yeah. No, I really like this first two chapters. I agree with you. That feels like the first one is very big circle. Second one is kind of inciting incident
Mm-hmm.
for the more immediate story.
Right.
But going forward from here, I was going to ask you kind of where you thought things were going. Do you have any comments on that? It's a little tricky because we haven't really started the book almost.
Yeah. No, I did think about it a little bit because I did write down there's a little bit of political intrigue in here as well, mixed in like obviously with the treaty. And like I said, they do the whole like Tarantino Pulp Fiction gold in the box thing where you don't really know what the treaty is, but they mention it a lot. So I think so the Parshendi made it known, or they at least had Seth show himself killing the king, you know?
Mhm.
They did it on purpose. I don't know if the message is going to be clear that it was a Parshendi thing because Seth isn't a Parshendi. He's from, like you said, he's Shin, right? Shin. Um,
But didn't they want him? to make it known that it was the Parshendi?
He didn't say
Or
anything. He only told King Gavilar.
just to Gavilar?
Yeah, and like he literally killed everybody else that saw him. So it was like, or not everybody else that saw him, but like he didn't talk to anybody.
Yeah.
So it's like that definitely had political motivation. So I mean, your king gets killed, someone's going to war. Like that's what's gonna happen. So I think that definitely is gonna be something. So I think we're gonna get, if I had to guess again, shot in the dark, war, right? War is gonna be something involved in here, which wow, big guess in a fantasy series, you know what I mean? But and then I think the search for the words is gonna be a focal point of this book. And
Okay.
like going back to it, right? Way of Kings, I'm telling you, I think he's calling out his brother, like, bro, like, step up, man. Like, step up.
Dalinar.
Yeah, he got to be better. Like, maybe, like, learn the way of Kings, bro. It's time. It's time to rule. Like, maybe he doesn't, maybe, because, like, they mentioned the king's son, who I guess would be the heir. Like, I don't know, maybe.
Alucard.
Yeah, I think, they say his name, but and he's in there for, like, one line. Like maybe they don't believe in him to rule yet. Like maybe he's too young in their traditions or something like that. I don't know. To me, I think King Gavilar is calling out his brother to be like, step up, the way of kings. And I don't think that's a coincidence. Yeah, so that's what I think. We're gonna get this. Like, I hope Dalinar's journey a little bit of like what happens to that. The king chose to call out his brother instead of his son before he died. And
You want me to comment on that?
no, don't tell me anything. Don't tell me any spoilers, but like, lead me astray or like, whatever you want to do.
Well, just about when you said, are we going to get more of the brother?
Mm-hmm. No, don't tell me.
It's nothing about the story.
Okay.
I was just going to say he's a POV, so you're going to get his character.
Yeah.
That's why I keep mentioning his name. He's a Dalinar. He's a name to remember.
Dalinar Colon. That's not a bad name. That's King Gavilar also isn't a bad name. It's still like very, like I wouldn't, mention his name in public. Like, yeah, King Gavilar.
I wouldn't name my kid that.
Yeah, but
Dalinar is actually one of my favorite characters.
I noticed too, like a lot of ARs in this story.
Oh,
lots of ARs.
I think that's part of the
culture or something.
Yeah, a little bit.
Lots of ARs. Like I think I was looking at the map and I'm like, that's AR, that's AR. Maybe not the map, but names. I mean, it's Alfcar,
Alucard,
the country.
Alucard.
Yeah. Aleph. Yeah, whatever. I'll listen to the audiobook a little bit so I can keep up on these pronunciations.
Yeah. But moving forward from here, so we're gonna start to get into the rest of the chapters. These were a little bit on their own, kind of standalone, but we're going to start to talk more about like the characters, plot. We'll get more into all of that. But you wanted to add something, Jacob?
Yeah, before we go, so I kind of want to, again, if I feel the vibe to do it, but it's the first one, so I'm going to do it. I'm a big fan of like, I'm going to tell you my favorite character of the section, if I have a favorite character, and then also character I didn't like or something, and not that it was bad, but just I don't like him. Favorite character, all right, I want to give big props to King Gavilar, bro. Dude sounds like a boss, you know what I mean? Like he sounds like his people believed in him. He was like, nah, don't have me run away, give me the armor, I'm gonna fight this guy. Like, and I know it was kind of like a diversion, really clever too, of like, hey, like, this is our way to like skirt, but like no. He's like, all right, cool, like we're gonna fight, and he almost kills him. This dude who like uses mystical powers that he has never seen before, and he almost gets him. Like the dude almost has to do like a suicide act to kill him. So
yeah,
so props to him, man. He sounds like a boss. I hope we get to learn a little bit more about it. And again, I think it's gonna a lot of be of like, my brother was such a good guy, like he did all these right things, like I didn't, like I'm not like him, I'm not him type of thing,
yeah.
Like I think literally like go Lion King, Dalinar is going to be looking at the water, and King Gavilar is going to be up there like, remember who you are, like yeah, I think that's I'm looking forward to that. I did like that. King Gavilar. Least favorite character, I mean Seth's son, like dude, just the name already 0. And then there's a part, I want to talk about this part because it's a little bit of a red flag for me. I would say this is the only thing I'm worried about that I've read so far. When he's doing his magic, the guards are like, "What are you?" And he goes, "What am I? I'm sorry." Oh my God, dude.
I'm vengeance.
Yeah. Throw up, man. I was just like, gosh, I hope they kill this guy. Like, arrow to the head. Just, nope. I could not be a fan of yours. Like, this dude needs to do some major character development if he wants me to be a fan. And then I'll leave you with this, and then I guess you can wrap up if you want. Or, discuss it if you want to join in. I have some biggest questions, and I think I want to, like, keep that trend up, as we go on, if I have some. Biggest question: what hell do the heralds go to, and who are they like gods to? That is something I want to know. Because, again, Vornir, we hear up, like, is that a people that worship them, or is that the god that, is the main Christ figure, I guess you could say? And then, again, like, the hell, like, where, why, what's going on there? Or, like, again, sins for our punishments type vibe. And then, I don't know if you have any comments on that.
No comment.
And then, will the one who got left behind know that he got left behind? Is it like a Wheel of Time thing where, like,
and he's like, "Where's everyone else?"
Yeah, well, like, are they? Do they go to this hell all together and in the same spot, or is it like with the Wheel of Time where it's like, yeah, we always end up to each other, but like he'll be reborn and then like I'll be reborn somewhere else, and then eventually we get connected, like, and then it's like, oh yeah, we're reborn, so we kind of lose our memories, but as we like move on, we remember, type of vibe. Like, is he gonna know, or is he gonna be searching for these people and never find them? Which I think again could be like, man, like that's deep, like he's looking for his friends and they're nowhere to be found. And he
I remember thinking it almost is like the beginning of a villain arc. To be like, hey, all my guys left me behind. I had to suffer by myself. And then if he ends up, because it seems like they come back, when he ends up coming back, he ain't going to be happy about that.
Yeah, I mean, I would.
So I thought it almost sounded like a villain. Type thing.
I think it could be, like, I think that's, I don't want to say the easy guess, but definitely like an option. But like I said, I think I would like to, I want to see him like be like the realization of, oh, like that's sad, man. That's sad. Like, for some reason they thought it was okay to leave you behind. And, I want to see those conversations of, you left me behind. So yeah, but that's all I got, I think. Let me check real quick because I had a lot of. Oh, and then last thing, I have 2 wants in this series from what they've shown me in the prelude and the prologue, and I know the way epic fantasy works. Like, this prelude, probably won't learn about it until like book 3 or book 4. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's going to take a while to learn, but I want to know what the deal is with stone. Like, that was so weird to me. So, like, called out so many times in this prologue. Like, again, said it, it's important. Why? And then, like, again, stone, like, we had those thunderclasts that were made of stone too. So it's like, gotta be a connection there. Like, if there is a connection, is Seth like the bad guy side type vibe? I don't know. And then 2, I want to hear the conversation that took place in the prelude where the other heralds voted to not go back. Like I said, it must have been filled with a lot of emotions. I think that would have been like a crazy, like, where they all just like, oh yeah, sure, like, fuck that guy, we hate him, he's annoying. Or, we're like, was there like, no, like, we shouldn't do it, we shouldn't, like, what was the, I would love to hear that conversation. We might not ever get it. Like, that one's not as big of a deal, but I do want to learn the stone because I think that was really hit on in this prologue. So yeah, I mean, that's all I got. I again, overall, really liked it. Like I said, it slowed down for me during the fighting, but other than that, like, I'm ready to read. Oh, we should decide what chapters we're going to read real quick.
Yeah. Well, I was going to add, there's a whole lot for us to get into later because, man, you haven't even peeked in the door yet to see just how much there is and where the story's going to go. And Yeah, no, it's really exciting. There's a reason why people love these books so much. And
Yeah.
Sanderson, he's mentioned, I don't know what this means entirely, but the book coming out this year is supposed to be like the end of the story in a way.
Whoa.
It's I think he said it's going to be 10 books total by the time it's done, but something about this book is like ending the story as we know it. I
Hmm.
don't know what that means, but that's pretty cool because by the end of the year we'll have like a self-contained. This is the story.
Yeah, that reminds
Uh,
me of, and we've talked about this when you were reading Game of Thrones, where I'm like, yeah, like after book 3, it's like a reset. Like that story
yeah,
that was kind of sold in books 1 and then, explored in book 2 is like that's kind of done now. And like the world, you have different players, different main characters, people are gone type vibe. Uh, so I think that's necessary in a series this long. Like I think once you
mm-hmm.
start getting past 4 books, it's like I think of Harry Potter too. It's like book 4, man, Voldemort gets introduced, completely different, like whoop shift. You know,
Yeah, and these are beefy books. I mean,
yeah, they ain't no
they're like over
slouches.
1,000 pages.
Um, yeah, so I'm looking forward to it,
For
man.
the for moving forward though, for the next chapters, let me take a look at the book because I'll kind of see where would be a good stopping point, so that way we're not kind of stuck in the middle of a discussion. Um, so I'll look at that, and then I can let you know so we can discuss those next time.
All right, cool. If you want, I don't know when you're gonna find out, but I guess you could cut here if you want to stop here recording.
Sure. Let me just do like the outro. But if anybody's listening, maybe 1 or 2 people, thank you for getting this far. We're going to continue to go through this book. And if Jacob really likes it, we'll start going through the other books and maybe some other series. But we ultimately want to do this podcast because we like talking about books. So if any of you guys have any comments, or if you want to ask Jacob questions as a first time reader, or just speculate, also, it's more of a first time reader podcast, this one. So we'd be happy to also discuss any of that. But yeah, so thanks if you got this far.
Thank you.